Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fast Forward Podcast. I'm Joanna Jourdi. Our guest today is Hannah Bellemay, the Managing Director of Charity Water, an organization dedicated to providing clean water to all those in need. They've already built clean water sources in more than 22 countries, serving more than 15 million people. As such, they implement Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. And in consequence, they contribute to so many other sustainable development goals, such as end poverty and hunger, good health and well-being, gender equality, and quality education. So let's learn more about Charity Water with Hannah. Hannah, welcome to Fast Forward Podcast.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so we want you to tell us more about Charity Water, how it was founded, and what inspired you to join it.
Yeah, of course. So I can tell you about Charity Water and then why it appealed to me in particular. So Charity Water actually turns, in fact, so we're recording this on September the 7th. It is Charity Water's sweet 16th birthday today. So 16 years of working to bring clean, safe drinking water to people in need. So we were founded by a man called Scott Harrison. He has a very unusual background when it comes to philanthropic ventures. So he was actually a nightclub promoter in New York, very into the music scene, the club scene, taking lots of drugs, having a great time until actually he wasn't anymore, because it started to feel very empty. And I think lots of us have done various things where they've seemed great and a good idea, and then we've started to realize that maybe they don't really align with our values or what we want, the kind of legacy or impact we want to leave on the world. So after doing that for a number of years, Scott quit all the drugs, quit all the women he was dating, all the kind of flashy lifestyle, and he went and volunteered on a hospital ship and went to Liberia. And this hospital ship, he would see people queue up and come. They would walk maybe for a month just to get access to this hospital, and even then they may not be seen because there were so many people queuing desperate for this medical treatment. So he started seeing that and just thinking, obviously the first thought that brings to many of us is how lucky we are in terms of the access that we have to these type of interventions and the help we need. But the longer time he spent, the more he started to think about and look into and get to know the people who were visiting and spending time with them where they came from, to realize that what was driving so much of the ill health was the lack of clean, safe drinking water that they were having to drink. Really some quite disgusting waters at times, the water we really wouldn't think about drinking. So he would see the parasites, the impact that had on everybody. Water is needed by everybody, but the particular impact it had on women who had to spend their time collecting this dirty water, and also children. So lack of clean water and sanitation and hygiene and being able to wash their hands and toilet properly, it's one of the biggest killers of children under the age of 5. So it's a huge, when we think about it like that, it's an ancient problem, but we think, I don't know, I think of like classrooms of nursery school aged kids not surviving because of these really basic things. So I'm going off on Scott and how he saw this and he wanted to do something. So he came back to New York, all guns blazing. And what he did is he spoke to loads of people, and he wanted to be sure they first of all knew about the water crisis. Did you know this is happening on the other side of the world? At that point, it was 1 billion people didn't have access to clean drinking water, because he was just sort of boggled by this. And what he found was that even when people didn't know about the problem, they didn't trust the charities or other organizations who said they were doing something, or who would they talk to, or what would that look like. And so he realized that there was it wasn't just the issue wasn't just the lack of clean water. The issue was people's general lack of feeling empowered to do anything about it, to know about progress, to know what to do, to know how to do it. So he set up Charity Water, and he sort of gave it one big bold promise at the beginning, which was 100% of donations given would be spent on clean water projects. And so what that means today, we still hold it very true and very central to who we are, is if you go on our website, if you give £10, $10, €10, whatever you want to give, every single penny, every single cent will be spent on a clean water project in another country. So none of it will go to the computer that I'm talking to you now, to the various operational costs that we have. Even the credit card fee, which your credit card company charges, we will refund that back into it. So it's the full 100% of the £10. And so that was the first thing he did, to really try and break that mistrust, and not only give people the ability to trust, but also to feel a sense of connection and joy that they could do something. So not only is it 100% going, we will then share with you photos of that impact, GPS coordinates, a pin on a map. You will be able to feel like you've seen that progress. So even now, if you go on our website, we have over 111,000 clean water projects. They are mapped across the globe, so that people can actually start to see that and to feel it, and to become so much more tangible. So that was Scott. He's a really visionary person to come in and kind of come from this different background, this much more marketing-y, I guess. So that's what he's applied. He's applied this bringing people together to parties, to bringing people together to solve this problem, and to make them go from having a fun one-night party to actually let's have let's still feel good, but by doing something different. So that was him. And as I said, that was 16. It's fun, actually, 16 years ago today. It's also his birthday today. Launched with a birthday party for himself. Also his daughter's birthday, just to keep all the birthdays coming. So that's Charity Water and how we started. And as I said, now it's over 111,000 projects. We will bring clean water with these projects to nearly 15.5 million people. So we and the industry as a whole have made progress. It's now 771 million people without clean water, but that's still about 1 in 10 of us. It's still just it just messes with my mind to think there's so many people who don't have this really basic thing, which should just be, we are really privileged in so many ways, in that we just turn on a tap and have clean water. We go and use a toilet, we can flush it, we can wash our hands, we have soap, we have all these basic things. And also when we don't have them and they don't work, we can call somebody and have it fixed, right? There'll be a public outcry, things will get fixed, things will be done. And that's just not how it works everywhere else. So we want to try and bring that as a basic equalizer. And that's why I joined Charity Water. I loved the tangibility of the mission. So I'd worked on a number of different causes until that point, but never had that one binary issue where it's clean or it's dirty. We've succeeded or we haven't. There's so much really important work done by the charitable sector that is by necessity muddy and immeasurable, and it's about changing opinions, so you can never have quite that like tick box done approach, and that's what we're able to do. And what we're also doing then is not only are we making sure it's done, we're making sure it's maintained, and that impact lasts as well, which is really important to us. So for me, that was so appealing, having worked in the charity sector for quite a number of years, just to have that clarity as to what I was getting up and working so hard to do every day, was to go from dirty to clean. And the other piece of it is there's so much we disagree on right now, and there's so many different problems in the world, and it feels really good to know that this is something we can agree on, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, no matter what your views are on so many divisive issues. We can all agree that humans need and should have clean water. And so that's the start of it. We can bring people together around this issue, and we can also say we know how to fix it. This is something we know how to do, so let's do it, let's take action. So that's the tangibility, the unification, and the movement forward for me are the things that really appealed.
Great. So first of all, happy 16th birthday to Charity
Thank
Water
you.
and to Scott. Okay, so what I understand is what makes Charity Water successful is the fact that you made a promise and you were very transparent on where the money goes to, and you engage people in the process. So I want to know more about what made the success of Charity Water.
Yeah, of course. So I think it started, as I said, with that vision and that way of trying to give people a feeling of joy. So 100% model gives you trust. Seeing the impact gives you a sense of joy, but also empowerment and everything else. I think that's been really core and important. Communicating it, sharing it, telling stories of people. So looking at the individual people we help, not just the numbers, and telling their stories and making people feel connections with people on the other side of the world is so important. So there's that. Then I would say, I think we're really fortunate. The team we work with at Charity Water, the people who work on the programmatic side, we have been so fortunate to get really talented, forward-thinking teams who, and actually that's one of the teams in the organisation who stick with us the longest. They get really involved, they know, they evolve, they progress with the organisation. To be sure that the impact we're having is sustainable and thought through and is considered in the sense, so if we're going to go into a country and work there, we're working with a local partner, what does that relationship look like? It's not us doing this work. Our success depends on finding amazing people living and working locally to deliver the work, and our relationship with them. So we're successful thanks to the team and thanks to them and how they've managed to work together and focus really clearly and cleverly on scaling in a sustainable way. So looking at one region, how do we get full coverage in this one region? It's easier to maintain this pocket of solutions and move on to the next rather than scattergun approach. So they've been really strategic and really focused on those relationships, and then the long term you can build when you've got those solid foundations.
So solid foundations and having good teams and people who are talented who work for you is really basic. And at the same time, there's the financial aspect of the organization. So I want to know more, how did Charity Water become financially sustainable, which is also an interesting and an important component of building the foundation of an organization.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's really the toughest question, because it's all well and good to have this 100% promise. Everyone's like, great, I know where my money's going, this is fantastic. And if you don't think about it too deeply, wonderful, we're done. You give you the money goes where it needs to go, everything's working. But then there is this other cost and this other piece. So that amazing team I talk about, they need to live and have salaries paid. They need to be able to fly to where they're going to go to. They need the equipment to take photos, to everything, all of it, all the business side of things. And so in some ways, it's like an existential question that can kind of hang over the team, particularly the fundraisers on one side, and think, how do we, yes, we need to fund the clean water, but we also need to make sure we're sustainable as an organisation. So we are really fortunate to have a group of, it's over 130 families. They are philanthropists. They fund our operational costs. So they invest, and we treat them very much like investors, almost like shareholders. So they commit to fund us. They usually commit for a 3-year period, sometimes 5, sometimes 10 years, but usually a 3-year period it starts out. If anyone else does this, the longer you can get commitment, the better, clearly. But so they start with that, and that allows, we then report back to them. So we have an annual meeting with them, a bit like a shareholder meeting, where the return isn't money. There's no money back ever out of this. What comes back from this is knowing how many lives have been impacted, and also how we've achieved it, how the team's grown, what we're looking at, what's the strategy. So they're very involved, and they're able to hear and to where appropriate guide us in that. So there's a dialogue there, which, so we're really fortunate to have them. It is an evolving conversation and an ongoing piece of work to have the right number of people and the right amount of funding to allow us to scale and have the maximum impact on the other side. So it's a tension we constantly have to look at. And what we've done in the UK since we've come over here is actually use gift aid. So the 25% back we get on some donations where taxpayers have made donations, so that we get some funding from the government, that tax, and we use that to help fund our operations. And what that allows us to do, we're very fortunate in the UK to have that, is to focus on how do we, if we just scale that side of it, there's still money coming in to scale the other side, which is really nice. Otherwise, what tends to happen and what we're doing generally is dividing our attention to how do we grow both pieces to at the right level to support and sustain one another.
So there's a great amount of clarity in how the structure is built and how Charity Water is funded, and also transparency is very important. Yeah. And also I understand you have specific criteria that allow you to choose the specific projects that you implement. So what are the criteria that allow you to select the specific target audience that you want to serve and the specific locations?
Yeah, so first of all, actually, I'll just go to one point in the transparency that I should have mentioned when we're talking about the operations. And we have 2 separate bank accounts, which helps make that simpler. So you pay into one bank account, and that's what you're getting in either on that. And we pay to be audited. We pay for an additional audit to make sure we're really clean on that, and nothing ever goes to the account that's not meant to. So we're so tight on it. But then moving on to the projects and how we decide where we work, what that looks like. So the first thing is we focus on rural communities without access to water. We focus on rural communities because they often are, first of all, 80% of people without clean water are in rural communities. They also tend to be the ones who are more difficult to reach because they're remote and hard to get to. They can be forgotten on the political side of things. There's fewer votes, it's harder to reach them. It's, you know, they can wait in those kind of scenarios and thoughts. And it's what we have become really good at. So we look at countries with so it'd be 600,000 people or more living in rural areas without clean water. So that's the first, like, okay, are there people without clean water in this area? Are they living rurally so that we can work effectively with our model? The next thing is, are these countries open to outside support? Are they willing and accepting of us coming in and funding this type of work? So that rules out some countries. So somewhere like North Korea, we wouldn't be able to work. It's just not. It's not open in that sense. So we'd look at that. The next thing we would look at is the risk and the stability of the country. So we are not experts in conflict zones. We build long-term solutions. So actually that's not where we should be going, because we're about sort of more stability in the long-term building impact rather than helping in a crisis. So we again don't look at countries who are at war or really high on the risk ratio in terms of what could happen with other conflict areas. So that's that. Then we're going to look at this. Then we're left with a wide number of countries we could still work in. And so the next thing would be, are there local organizations, people and partners who are able to deliver the level of quality that we want to fund? So we'd look at that and then start to look at how do we work together and build it up. We're at a stage now, we're fortunate, we have built in 29 countries. We're now active in 21, we're just going on to our 22nd, but we are not looking to necessarily add more countries, because once you're in a country, we want to be really intentional about building up as much coverage as possible within that country. So we're not scattergunning, we are really focusing. So that's how we're doing it, and we're working really intentionally within those countries.
Great. So a lot of cooperation, a lot of working together, which is something that is wonderful. And this is a great foundation as well. And I want to know more about how you ensure the long-term sustainability of the project that you build.
Yeah, of course, it's something we have. We've spent so much time and energy and thought, and not me, not my area, but those teams working on that. It's so important to them. So it's very hard to get statistics as to how many wells, for example, have been drilled in sub-Saharan Africa, hand pumps put on, and then they're not working very, very shortly afterwards. And for us, that's not okay. Obviously, it's not okay to the donors who give us the money and trust us with that, who think they've given us a long-term solution. And it's really not okay with those communities who have had clean water, started to build lives around that, and then it's taken away. Their immune systems are weaker. Everything goes backwards. It's worse almost than never. It's too disruptive. So for us, we've really paid huge amounts of attention and continue to how do we make it sustainable, because it's not like I said here, where if my water goes down, I pick up the phone, I call somebody, right? My phone's working, I know who to call, they have to respond. I might go on Twitter, or there's different ways. It's just not the same in terms of those access points as well. It's not just how you get the clean water, but the infrastructure around it. So what we wanted to do is really help with that, and we tried all different solutions. We've tried putting phone numbers to call if it's not working. That doesn't work in some communities for various reasons. It's not the culture necessarily to call and complain and say this is, that's not it's they may only turn the phone on once a week when they go to market, and they do this, and then they don't have the phone on the rest of the time. They need to be called back. People don't want to talk about problems. There's so many different things to think about. So one of the solutions, and it's not the only solution, but one of our sort of like most innovative and the solutions we're investing in right now is sensor technology. So developing sensors which can be retrofitted on our clean water projects, but also other clean water projects. So it's not just about us, it's open source, and having those put in place, and then seeing that transmits to the cloud. There's all this data that comes back from it, so we can see the water flow. And what that means is you can see if a project goes offline. You can see if suddenly it stops producing. You can also start to see interesting patterns in terms of water use, and start to also look, hopefully in the long term, at what are some of the indicators before something goes offline. How do we repair them before there's even a problem, because we've started to see that there's something that's not quite right. So it's new technology, it's being developed, it's more complicated than you imagine when it's in these rural, remote environments and it has to obviously be waterproof. The first one wasn't waterproof, which is the worst thing you can imagine. And if you think also with a hand pump or something, it's not simple water flow, it's going up and down, up and down, up and down. So there's all these different components. So it's an active, ongoing pilot project. It's really exciting to be working on that type of thing, which is new to the whole market, and we're doing a lot of pilots at the moment. So that's the future, really, to be able to monitor things remotely. Ahead of that, and across all projects, what we're able to do right now and are currently doing across all projects are, first of all, the partners we choose. We know and check and work with them on the quality of their work. There's just has to be done properly and well, and the right materials have to be used. So we want stainless steel piping that's not going to corrode, for example, because once a corroded pipe is deep down in a well, it's very hard to get out and to repair for the community. So the right good work, the right materials, the quality materials. Then there's all about the training and the community and them feeling a sense of ownership. So it's not just about the hardware. There's what we call almost the software piece of it, which is the community wants the water point. What does that look like for them? How are they going to maintain it? How can they be trained to look after this? And that is really done beautifully. So often you'll see there'll be a fence or a wall built around it by the community. They will lock it up at certain hours to protect it at night and things like that. It'll be open for the rest of it. Usually there is a water committee, usually 50% women at least, 50% men, sometimes more women than that. And they are trained on the basic maintenance and also the collecting of a small level of fees from the local community. And those fees are then collected and used in the case of small repairs. And we're of course using appropriate technology, which means the small repairs and things are needed can be bought locally. They don't need to import and other things which wouldn't work. So it's all about the quality of the work in the first place, finding the right partners, the quality of the materials they're using, the training of the communities and the empowerment of them to maintain this themselves. And then we need to have a safety net, which means that when things go wrong, there is a way for us to come out. So we have, in some areas, we have mechanics on motorbikes who are going out and doing repairs, or different solutions that work at different countries. So you need all of those in place.
Great. So you have a structure for having constant feedback loops, and also benefiting from what is readily available and engaging the community in the process of maintaining the project.
Yes, that's always a hope, and that was put much more succinctly and eloquently than my long answer, but yes.
Okay, and I want to talk about the ripple effect. So it's like water. It starts with a small ripple, and then the ripple grows exponentially and has effects that are not provisioned essentially. So I want to talk about the ripple effects of clean charity water.
Yeah, of course, and there's so many, and we always start with looking at the numbers and the statistics, and we have part of the team is somebody who actually goes out and designs the measurement, not only of the clean water flowing and everything, but the impact of that. So looking at sample populations and all that. So we have all the numbers. We have some of the numbers ourselves. There are a lot of academic studies which will show that clean water improves gender equality. It reduces infant mortality. It every £1 invested could have £4 to £12 return in the local economy. And there's all these numbers which are amazing and great, and they help us to justify the work and know we're going in the right direction. But what we find is actually when our team and we talk with our partners and people out there speaking with people, it's the stories that stick with you. And I heard one, and I'll share it because it's something I'd heard recently for the first time, and I was really interested in it, which was we don't only put clean water in schools, in homes, we also put it in schools and in health clinics. And that's really important because what tends to happen is when clean water comes to a school, enrollment and people's attendance goes up by 30%, and enrollment from girls increases. But one we hadn't heard particularly until recently, but one of our partners one of our team members who was out, she was in a community, she was in Uganda, she was talking to a headmaster of a school who had recently got clean water, toilets, everything he needed for his school, and this includes a small room for girls when they have their periods, to clean up, to change, to sort themselves out, to make sure that's all working, maybe a mirror to make sure their clothing's right, the dignity side of things. And he just said that it's so good because we've got we've got fewer teenage pregnancies. And you just think, and she hadn't heard that before, and we know it increases the education of girls and the number of girls who attend school, but we hadn't thought about actually that direct impact on teenage pregnancies. And he talked about it, and he said there's a few reasons. So first of all, if the girls aren't having to go and collect water and walk far away from home, they aren't possibly meeting up with boys and all the rest of the things that teenage girls may do and find themselves in a situation they don't want to be in. But they're also, even more importantly than that, is they're not putting themselves in danger of rape and being violated in some way, which is horrific to imagine on a daily chore. So that risk is removed, and they are better educated, and therefore the families are less likely to want them to leave the home and go into an earlier marriage, and so you can also see less girls being married when they're not ready. So there's so many softer things like that we may not always have the hard numbers for, but it's so important. And just knowing that you're giving a single girl a chance to go to school, to be not only hydrated, but actually to feel clean, to go when she still has a period and not worry about it, to get her education and make decisions for herself without being put in a risky situation. I mean, that's, my daughter's 10 and she's just started walking a very short distance herself home, and I worry about her on this short distance. Imagine sending them out to walk miles when you have no way of knowing whether, it's that stuff where you just, as a parent, as a human, you want to protect those girls. and help those girls be whoever they want to be and go wherever they want to go.
It's wonderful. So how much this essential element that is provided could impact people's lives. I think it's really inspiring. Beautiful. So what are the next steps of Charity Water in their growth, in your growth as an organization?
Yeah, of course. So we talk about this a lot because, 16 years old, over, nearly 15.5 million people. It's not enough. So for us, we're like, some people will say to Scott, they say, oh, did you think you'd achieve this when you started? You've grown an organization that raises $100 million a year. You've helped this number of people. And he will say, I thought we would be done by now. I thought we would have solved this. How can we not, as human beings, be just getting this done? And so for us, the future is not about continued incremental growth. We need to maintain, business as usual and keep things going, but we want to, put a rocket under this. We want to end the water crisis. We want every single person to have access to clean and safe drinking water, to be able to wash their hands, to be able to go to the toilet. And so our work will never be done until we reach that day. And we want to get there soon because it impacts all those girls, because it impacts all those children under 5, because it just changes lives. So all that to say, the future for us is how do we do it quicker, faster, better, just keep going. So yeah, that we talk a lot about that, and we have plans to hopefully help us get there. But it's not going to be about us. It's going to be about people rallying around and feeling generous and feeling open and feeling compassion for people on the other side of the world. And like we all have a role to play.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you so much, Hannah Bellemay, for sharing your experience with us, for sharing your passion for bringing to people in need the source of life, which is water, which is so important. And I really applaud your efforts. And thank you so much for sharing Charity Water with the rest of us and all the organizations that are also dedicated to implementing sustainable development goals. So from Fast Forward 2030 Lebanon, let us honor our natural and human heritage to create the best life conditions for our future generations.
Thank you so much. And thank you for, we only get anywhere with this work through working through others. And so you giving us a platform to share about Charity Water and why it's important to give and to be involved. Really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.